Guys, welcome back to another Big Al's Real Fighting. Now this particular video is all about the hands, more specifically how to shape the hands for certain types of strike. Believe it or not, there are multiple ways in which you can, position your hand to deliver maximum damage to your opponent according to where you're striking them and according to how much damage you want to do to them, and a variety of factors like that. Some of these grips exist because they allow grappling after a strike, but and some just exist because it minimizes the damage that your fist takes in return when you strike the wrong part of their body. But we'll go over the details of it as we go through it. Now, the first one and the most basic one is, of course, the standard fist. This is used in all forms of martial arts. Obviously, boxing is the one that most people will be aware of, and it's a natural way in which you will form a fist to strike someone. To do it, you get your hand, you clench it up like so, fingers tucked away nicely, normally in that little crease there of skin, and you wrap the thumb around the outside like so. Okay, you can squeeze quite tightly if you want, and as you do it, you might just see that obviously all the muscles in my hand start to get really firm. If I was to push that down, they become rock solid, and the fist itself, where the knuckles are, you get this little prominence of the knuckles starting to stick out, and that's where you hit alongside well, essentially with the knuckles and with the sort of the whole weight of the fist behind it. Now, the number of people I've had come to me going, "Is this how you form a fist?" And they come to me and they go, "Oh, I can't. Shit. I just realised I can't actually do this with my hand. My right hand, my thumb on my right hand's paralysed, guys. So I've just got to swap my hand. It's partly paralysed, so I can't show you the incorrect way because I can't get my thumb in. But basically, they put the thumb on the inside and wrap it round, and they go, "Is this how you form a fist?" 90% of people, Joe Blogs and all the rest of it, they will come and say, "Is this how you form a fist, or is it this way? I'm not sure." Okay, and of course it's this way. That's how you do it. The reason as such is because if you put your thumb on the inside of the fist, when you strike something, all the force will be transmitted to the thumb, which is tucked away. Come on, camera, focus. Focus. Pivot. Pivot. Anyway, all the force will go into the thumb and will break it along here. So unless you want to break your thumb, go ahead. If you want to break your thumb, hold it like that. But there we go, tucked away nicely, and we're striking with the upper part of the fist here. Unfortunately, I can't point, guys, because I'm holding the camera in my other hand, okay? I'm just going to swap hands again. Okay, so as I say, guys, I can't get my thumb on the inside to show you. That's the limit of my movement on my thumb, so I do apologise for that. However, there are other types of grips or shapes that you can do with your hands according to what you want. Palmer strikes, typically that's what you do with a palmer strike. Now, my God, I've just seen my hands for the very first time like that. They look like gorilla paws, don't they? No wonder people don't like getting hit by me. And what you're doing is you're striking towards the base of the wrist, essentially. So right here, that's where you're striking. More here actually with this, and essentially what you're doing is you're forming like a baton, bang, okay, this solid rod to hit them with, and the hand, you just remove it out of the way, and it's not a slap. You don't hit with these parts, okay? That's why you took the fingers in. You're not slapping the person, you're striking with the base of the hand, which is here, okay? The reason you do that, first of all, it generates a hell of a lot of power, believe it or not. Going like that, there's a lot more power behind it than going like this, because when you strike with the fist, the wrist can bend and will bend a little bit when you start getting a bit stronger, and so it will dissipate some of the power that you strike with. See, immediately, especially if something you're hitting is angled. Okay, I've got to really try and keep that straight. Even at a low velocity, my wrist wants to bend downwards or upwards. Okay, whereas with a palm strike, it will not bend because it's already locked into its upright position. And there you go, not a problem whatsoever. The thumb, you can stick it out a bit like that. That's just me struggling again with my thumb. You're supposed to tuck it away in, so I'll show you again with my left hand, that's better. Okay, that's how it's supposed to look. Okay, now, palmer strikes, the reason they exist is because knuckles break, believe it or not. If you hit strong enough, if you're a good enough boxer and you hit someone with your hand, your knuckles can fracture. And this part, the outside of the hand, at the base of the little finger, right down to the wrist, that can break also, and that's called a boxer's fracture. And I do apologise, guys, the camera keeps unfocusing. Just hopefully, let's just see if we can get it to focus again. There we go. So the base of the little finger can fracture also. That's called a boxer's fracture. Very common when people throw punches who are not used to throwing punches or don't know how to throw a proper punch. That's why you do palm strikes, or partly why you do palm strikes, because it's a lot harder to damage yourself. It's very, very hard to break what's down here. Okay, very resistant to damage, and it hurts. When you get hit by these, it hurts. They've got less range. Okay, so instead of having that range, you've got that range. You're losing a couple of inches, 3 inches maybe on range, but the force of the impact is very, very powerful. The other reason is legality in certain countries like the UK. Using palm strikes is still not legal. It's still assault, but it's a lower down assault than using a fist. Okay, specifically because you can say you were just pushing them away. You're pushing them away with an open hand. You didn't mean to strike them. So the legality of a palm strike is more in your favour if you have to defend yourself. You're trying to use the minimum possible force, which is what when you're defending in self-defence, you're not trying to hurt the person. You're just trying to disable them or hurt them enough to the point where they stop hurting you. You're using a minimum possible force, and doing palm strikes helps do that, but allows you to still deliver enough force to be able to disable the opponent quickly. Okay, it delivers a lot of force, but it's not seen as destructive as the fist. The reason so is when you do the fist can cut. Okay, the fist, if it strikes above the eye, can do a lot of nasty damage. It can cut the skin. Wherever it strikes, actually, these knuckles are almost like knives when used correctly. Whereas this is just going to make you swell. You're not going to cut anyone with a palm strike. Another variation is actually basically like a palm strike. Instead of having the fist up like this, you have it like that, but it's a very similar position, nicely tucked away, and that is essentially the chop. Okay, you can see how much force I can generate quite easily with that. Okay, and you're striking with this part of the hand here, the outside of the hand. Okay, and this is for very close range strikes. You can use it like a hammer, especially against someone's neck, or if you're up close and personal in the clinch, you can kind of shove with it. Okay, shove as you're going across. So say towards the bridge of the nose, for example, they're coming up close, bang, like that. That can be a useful form of grip also. Very hard to do properly, but it does have its usage, especially in street fighting. You would never see that done in the ring because you can't do it with gloves on. The other grips I'm about to show you are also very uncommon in the ring unless you're wearing specific types of glove. Okay, so this is particularly street fighting and self-defense. Okay, and that is the rake, essentially. So it's like the palm strike, but you keep your fingers a little bit sort of more out, so they're more likely to catch some things. Same with the thumbs, you can almost stick them out like that. So when you go in, if you're gouging, your thumbs want to be in this kind of C shape like this, your fingers like that, so you can go for the eyes with your thumb. Or this goes onto the face, say this here is someone's eye, that's staying on my sofa. That's very bad of me, I should clean that. You can go in and you can rake someone's eyes, you pull downwards. Same with the ears, if their eyes are here, the ear would be somewhere around here, you can grab on and rake their ears. So the rake is typically used on the eyes and the ears, sensitive parts of the face. That's the only time you would ever use the rake form of grip. And I don't recommend it apart from unless you're very trained in it, because you can break your fingers if you get it wrong. There are two other grips and very similar variations of one another. One is this kind of grip. I forget what they call it now, actually. Okay, where you have slightly bent fingers, so your fingers aren't completely straight, they're slightly bent, with your middle finger sticking out more like that. And it's essentially the finger poke, essentially. And what you do, there's two specific areas that you strike at with this. The eyes, okay, and just above the sternum on the throat, there's what's called the suprasternal notch. Suprasternal meaning above the sternum notch. There's a little gap essentially in the throat in between the Adam's apple essentially and the sternum, which isn't protected at all, and if struck, you can kill people. But it will certainly disable them at the very least, depending on how much force you do. All you do is you just go bang, like that, but you've got to be very precise, and it is very dangerous. I mean, I've practiced this against the wall, and you can get quite a lot of force without doing too much damage, but if you strike and get it wrong and hit them in the forehead, for example, goodbye fingers. So this is a sort of only do it if you know you're going to get it. But what you would do is you wouldn't just send it out once. You go bam, 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 and you eventually one would get in. And if they've got a knife, for example, it's life and death anyway. Who cares if you break your fingers? If you send it in 10 strikes within the first few seconds, and 5 or 6 of them miss, but 3 or 4 of them go into the eyes, they're gone. That will blind someone or put them in so much pain they're going to not bother you, and it's going to give you time to go away. So you just go bang like this, but with your fingers bent. If your fingers were straight, they might go backwards and snap. Okay. And this is my own variation of it. It hasn't got as much range, so that has advantage of range over everything. That is the longest range. It's like a spear tip. That is a spear tip strike. Okay. The other variation, it's safer. It doesn't damage your fingertips in any way whatsoever. It doesn't penetrate as much, but it's still just as much. And that is, as you can see here, I took my fingers away like this. It's a bit like a palmer strike, but where your middle finger sticks out, and you use that in the same way as the fingertips as described. Bang, bang. Okay, it doesn't hurt as much, and it's not so good for going for the suprasternal notch, which is, I say, within the neck. But this, striking anywhere in the neck is going to do damage, and it's great for going for the eyes as well. And this is also very good for going for the temple. Okay, and any vulnerable spot really. You can even do it in the body to some extent, and you penetrate all your force within that single point. It is particularly useful, but again, it's have I ever used it? No. Would I ever use it? Hell yes, if I had to. If I was, had to take someone out quickly and just hit them in the throat. But, so I can hit you in the throat with this as well. But it just depends how big the gap is. If they're covering themselves, that's not going to get through. That's got a better chance of getting through. That's got an even better chance of getting through. So, also depends how much guard they've got. Just a brief introduction to the ways that you can shape your hands, guys. I don't know if it's a topic that's there's an oversight on it. Typically, I feel weird talking to the camera without you being able to see my face. So what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to end the video there, but I do hope that helped. Lovely to talk to you again, guys. See you now. Goodbye.